All right, so let's dive into something a little dark today.
That sounds fun.
Yeah. You know,
I like dark.
we're going to be cracking open William Golding's Lord of the Flies.
Okay.
And it's a book that takes like the classic deserted island scenario
Right.
and twists it into this chilling exploration of human nature.
Yeah.
So like think about it.
Yeah.
You're stranded on a deserted island, no adults.
Yep.
Total freedom.
That was pretty good.
Paradise, right?
Well, what if that freedom
Yeah.
reveals something sinister lurking beneath the surface?
Oh, okay.
So that's what we're going to unpack today.
I'm into it.
Good.
So what I think is so fascinating about Lord of the Flies is how Golding uses this deceptively simple setup.
Right.
A group of British schoolboys on a deserted island
Yep.
to dissect some really complex ideas.
Yeah.
And it's not just a thrilling adventure story.
Mm-hmm.
It's a social experiment.
Oh, wow.
Laid bare on the page.
A look at how thin the line between civilization and savagery truly is.
I remember when I first read it, I was struck by how quickly things devolved.
Yeah.
You have these boys, and they're initially excited to be free from rules
Of course, yeah.
and adults.
Yeah, who wouldn't be?
Yeah. Trying to build their own little society.
Sure.
But almost immediately, you see the cracks forming.
Yeah, well, it all starts with such hope, too.
Right.
They elect Ralph as their leader. They establish rules.
Yeah.
That iconic conch shell
Right.
becomes this symbol of order and democracy.
Oh, yeah.
But if we connect that to the bigger picture,
Okay.
think about how many times in history we've seen symbols of authority just crumble
Right.
when societies start to break down.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the Roman Empire,
Okay.
the French Revolution, even something like the tearing down of statues in recent social movements.
Oh, yeah?
It's all about challenging and dismantling existing power structures.
Wow. I never thought about the conch in that context.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's a powerful image.
Mm.
And things get even darker when the boys start obsessing over this beast
Right.
lurking in the shadows.
Yeah.
It seems like this primal fear really drives their descent into savagery.
Yeah,
So was there ever an actual beast?
that's a good question.
Or was it all in their heads?
Well, that ambiguity is part of what makes the book so unsettling.
Oh,
I mean, the beast is never clearly defined.
right.
It can be a real creature,
Mm-hmm.
but it's more likely just a manifestation of their collective fear and anxiety.
Oh, I see.
What's interesting here is how this fear is exploited by Jack,
Okay.
the character who embodies the book's descent into chaos.
Right.
He uses the beast to manipulate the boys,
Yeah.
promising protection and power if they follow him.
That reminds me of how authoritarian leaders throughout history have used propaganda and fear to control populations.
Exactly.
It's like the boys on the island become a microcosm of those larger societal breakdowns.
Golding isn't just telling a story about some kids on an island. He's holding up a mirror to humanity.
Ooh.
He's asking us to consider what might happen when the structures of civilization fall away,
Okay.
when fear takes over,
Mm-hmm.
when our primal instincts are unleashed.
And that's where the Lord of the Flies itself comes in, right?
Yeah.
This grotesque pig's head
Right.
impaled on a stick.
Pretty gross.
Yeah, and it's more than just a creepy image. It's
right.
like a symbol of something deeper,
Yeah.
something dark within the boys themselves.
The Lord of the Flies represents the evil that exists within each of us, this primal instinct that's unleashed when social constraints are removed.
Oh, okay.
And this raises an important question.
What's that?
If you were in that situation,
Okay.
stripped of the rules and norms of society,
Mm.
what choices would you make? Would you cling to your morals,
Right.
or would you succumb to the darkness?
That's a chilling thought.
It is.
And maybe that's what makes this book so powerful.
Yeah.
It forces us to confront these uncomfortable truths about ourselves, makes us question what we're capable of when pushed to our limits.
Definitely.
What really struck me, though, was the loss of innocence in these boys.
Okay.
They start out as ordinary schoolboys,
Right.
and yet they become capable of such horrifying acts.
Well, that loss of innocence is directly tied to the broader theme of civilization versus barbarism.
Okay.
Think about Ralph, who represents reason and order, and Jack, who embodies savagery and chaos.
Right.
Their struggle is a microcosm of this eternal conflict that plays out in societies throughout history.
Yeah, I see that.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, it's like watching this slow-motion train wreck as they lose sight of their initial goals. You know, they actually managed to build a fire at first,
Right?
a signal fire,
Yeah.
this beacon of hope,
Mm-hmm.
a desperate attempt to connect with the outside world.
Well, the fire becomes this really potent symbol.
Okay.
At first, it represents their connection to civilization, to the possibility of rescue.
All right.
But as the boys descend further into savagery,
Yeah.
the fire gets neglected,
Oh.
eventually extinguished.
Okay.
It's like their hope for a return to normalcy literally goes up in smoke.
And isn't that a powerful metaphor for how quickly we can abandon reason and logic when faced with fear
Totally.
and the desire for immediate gratification?
Yeah.
It reminds me of how often in times of crisis, we see societies turn inwards,
Mm-hmm.
prioritize survival over cooperation,
Right.
even turn against each other.
Absolutely. It's almost as if the island itself becomes a character,
Oh, wow.
a testing ground, stripping away the layers of civilization to reveal what lies beneath.
I like that.
And within that context, Piggy, with his spectacles and asthma,
Right.
becomes such a tragic figure.
Oh, Piggy, he's such a powerful representation of intellect and reason
Yeah,
in a world consumed by chaos.
for sure.
He tries so hard to be heard, to
Yeah.
remind the others of what truly matters, but he's ultimately ignored,
Right?
bullied,
Yeah.
and ultimately...
Piggy's death is a turning point in the story.
Yeah.
It signifies the triumph of barbarism over civilization,
Right?
the silencing of reason and intellect.
Wow.
The boys have crossed a line,
Yeah.
and there's no going back.
It's a stark reminder that the most vulnerable members of society often bear the brunt of this descent into chaos.
Unfortunately, yeah.
It's chilling, and it makes you wonder, if you were there,
Mm-hmm.
would you be strong enough to stand up for someone like Piggy? Or would you just get swept up in the group mentality?
That's the insidious thing about groupthink.
Okay.
It can warp our sense of morality,
Right.
make us doubt our own instincts, pressure us to conform even when we know something is wrong.
Yeah. I think we've all experienced this on some level, haven't we?
Probably.
Maybe not as extreme as in Lord of the Flies.
Right.
But that pressure to fit in,
Sure.
to go along with the crowd,
Yeah.
even when it goes against your values.
Totally.
Think about social media,
Oh, yeah.
how quickly outrage can spread, how dissenting voices can be silenced.
Yeah, it's like a digital version of the island where anonymity empowers the mob mentality.
And that's where the real-world implications of Golding's novel become so apparent.
Absolutely.
It's a cautionary tale,
Yeah.
not just about what can happen in extreme situations,
Right.
but about the dangers of unchecked power, the fragility of social norms,
Right.
and the constant battle between our better angels and our darker impulses.
A powerful message.
So if the beast represents this primal fear, and the Lord of the Flies symbolizes the evil within,
Right.
what does Ralph represent? Because even in the midst of all this chaos,
Yeah.
he never completely gives up on hope,
True.
on trying to maintain some semblance of order.
Well, Ralph is the embodiment of the civilized self,
Okay.
clinging to reason, morality, and the hope of rescue.
Okay.
He represents that part of us that wants to believe in goodness,
Right.
in cooperation,
Yeah.
and the possibility of a better world.
But even Ralph, despite his best efforts, is ultimately unable to prevent the descent into savagery.
That's true.
So is Golding suggesting then that we're all doomed to repeat these cycles of violence and chaos?
I don't know about that.
That civilization is just a thin veneer that can be easily stripped away?
I don't think it's that simple.
Okay.
While the ending of Lord of the Flies is certainly bleak, it's not entirely without hope.
Okay.
Remember the naval officer who arrives at the end?
Right. He's like the symbol of the adult world, of
Yeah.
authority, of a return to civilization.
Exactly.
But the way he views the boys almost with amusement,
Yeah.
as if their struggles are just child's play.
Right.
It's unsettling.
That's the irony, isn't it?
Yeah.
The officer represents the very society that created the conditions for this war.
Oh, wow.
This violence that looms in the background of the entire story.
Right.
He's oblivious to the darkness that has unfolded on the island, almost dismissive of it.
Yeah.
And that's a really powerful statement from Golding. He's implying that even those in positions of authority can be blind to the forces of savagery that exist within their own societies.
Wow, that adds a whole new layer of complexity to the ending.
It does.
So it's not just about the boys on the island.
Ugh.
It's about a world that often ignores or even perpetuates the conditions that allow such darkness to flourish.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's almost like a warning, isn't it?
It is.
That the potential for savagery,
Right.
it isn't confined to some remote island. It's present everywhere,
Yeah.
even in the most civilized societies.
Makes you wonder, what's the antidote?
Right.
I mean, if fear and the lust for power can so easily corrupt,
Yeah.
is there any hope for us to resist these darker impulses?
What can we learn from Lord of the Flies to navigate our own complex world?
That's the big question.
Yeah.
It really is.
I mean, the book doesn't offer any easy answers,
No,
but it definitely prompts some serious introspection.
for sure.
For me, it highlights the importance of critical thinking.
Oh,
We can't just blindly accept everything we're told or follow the crowd without question. We have to be willing to challenge our own assumptions
yeah.
and think for ourselves.
Especially in this age of information overload.
Right.
I mean, we're bombarded with so many narratives,
Yeah.
so many voices clamoring for our attention.
It's easy to get swept up in the current,
It
lose
is.
sight of our own values and beliefs.
Yeah, it's like we're all on that island,
Right.
surrounded by different factions, all vying for power.
Yeah. And the beast is constantly lurking, feeding on our fears and insecurities.
And that's where empathy becomes so crucial.
Okay.
If we can step outside of our own echo chambers, try to understand different perspectives,
Right.
maybe we can start to bridge those divides.
Yeah.
Remember, the boys on the island were all from the same background,
Right.
same social class.
Yeah.
Imagine how much more complex those dynamics become in our diverse world.
That's a great point.
Yeah,
It's a reminder that understanding and compassion are essential tools
for sure.
for building a more just and equitable society.
Absolutely.
And that starts with each of us
Mhm.
taking responsibility for our own actions,
Right.
for the way we treat others,
Yeah.
for the choices we make every day.
Because those choices have consequences,
Yeah,
both for ourselves and for the world around us.
right.
Just like the boys on the island,
Yeah.
we're constantly shaping our own reality through the decisions we make.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Lord of the Flies,
Okay.
I want to put the question back to you, the listener.
All right.
What resonates with you most about this story? What lessons do you take away from it?
Good question.
Because ultimately, it's not just a story about some boys on an island.
Right.
It's a reflection of the human condition, of the challenges we all face in navigating the complexities of our own world.
And maybe that's what makes it such a timeless and enduring piece of literature.
Yeah.
It doesn't offer easy answers,
Right.
but it forces us to ask the hard questions, to confront the darkness, and to strive for something better.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Lord of the Flies.
My pleasure.
It's a book that stays with you long after you finish reading it.
It really does.
And hopefully it sparked some thought-provoking conversations for you as well.
I hope so.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep choosing the path of light.